Let's start with a question, and please don't cheat and look it up on Google. How many immigrants have been deported by Donald Trump? Think about it. During the electoral campaign, Donald Trump couldn't have made his point more clear. He wouldn't accept any more illegal immigrants. Well, check out this chart. If you pay attention, you will see that deportations-wise, Obama was stricter on immigration than Trump. Does this mean that Trump loves immigrants and deserves a Nobel Peace Prize? No. In fact, there are many nuances to discuss about that chart. But I wanted to show it to you to make a point. When it comes to immigration, words are one thing and facts are a totally different one. So, well, why are we talking about any of this? Well, that's because of this.
Migrants at southern border top 100,000 for second month in a row.
Yeah, you heard that right. At the moment, the American continent is dealing with one of the biggest refugee crises in recent history. But let's hear more details about this from Eric.
Of course, Simon. In recent years, hundreds of thousands of Central American immigrants have been crossing Mexican territory until they reach the border with the United States. Many of them are children and women who make the trip by foot and often arrive malnourished and sick. And yes, I said they cross Mexican soil because they come from Central America. Countries such as Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, for many, have become a living hell. There's violence, there are drug gangs, and of course, in many places, there's extreme poverty. And these have caused people to flee their homelands in search of a better life.
So now you might be wondering, well, how did Trump react to this challenge? Well, of course, he did this.
Donald Trump threatens Mexico with 5% import tariff over illegal immigration.
Yeah, you heard that right. Donald Trump wants to pass the hot potato to Mexico. But here's the big question. Well, what does Mexico do about it? First of all, the Mexican president is the man you see on screen right now. That is Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, also known as AMLO. AMLO is a hardcore left-wing politician who, you guessed it, is not a big fan of Donald Trump. During the electoral campaign, he said he would be compassionate with immigrants crossing into his country. But now he says he's being pushed by the White House to take a hard stance on immigration. You see, Mexico has a lot to lose if America imposes tariffs on them. So AMLO had to send in the troops to stop the immigrants on the southern border. So again, evil Donald Trump is pushing a poor, good-hearted politician to do his dirty work, right? Well, this is the narrative you often hear on many media outlets, but is it really that simple? So here's a big question. I mean, what would be the big deal if Mexico just took in more refugees? I mean, similar arrangements have been made with other countries like Turkey, and they seem to work. But here's the thing. Have you ever wondered about the immigration policy in Mexico? Well, you should. Here are some numbers. 14% of the US population are immigrants. The OECD average is 13%, but Mexico has just 1%. Yep, you heard that right. Mexico is not a country for foreigners. So today's question is, well, how does Mexican immigration policy actually work? What is Mexico actually doing to manage the refugee crisis? Are they really doing what Trump wants? Well, today we're going to answer all of these questions, but as always, before we do, we gotta take a look back at the history.
The Migrant Caravan.
I know what you're thinking now. Why are so many Central Americans leaving their countries right now? Well, let's be honest here. Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador have not exactly been history's prosperous countries. But if we have learned anything from history, it's that what can go bad can go even worse. Between 2010 and 2012, the crime rates absolutely skyrocketed. Honduras suffered a coup d'etat in 2009. El Salvador is suffering street violence from the so-called morass or street gangs. Something similar is happening in Guatemala, and part of it can be explained because of drug trafficking. You see, during the 80s, narco-violence was focused on Colombia. You definitely knew that. Those were the times of Pablo Escobar, the Cali cartel, and FARC. But after 2000, Colombia managed to reduce the violence. Yep, cocaine production is still going on there, but the cartels have reached a sort of pax mafiosa. They are still doing the drug business, but they don't kill each other anymore. But now a similar kind of drug violence has moved to other parts of the continent. Also, some people blame climate change. According to this theory, climate change is creating droughts in Central America. If the crops aren't productive, people starve and have to leave. Add to this NGOs like Pueblos Sin Fronteras, which organize the so-called migrant caravans. They offer logistical support to thousands of migrants to start their journeys to the US border. But of course, it's not only about NGOs. It's also about those human traffickers. So, as you can see, there are many explanations, but the truth is that there is an exodus. For a better understanding, in 2007, US Border Patrol apprehended 16,000 Guatemalans. 11 years later, in 2018, the figure increased to 116,000. And now you might be wondering, well, are these immigrants or are they refugees? And to be fair, we should only really talk about refugees here. Now, officially, they are considered economic migrants, but let's be honest, these are not ambitious people trying to achieve the American dream. In most cases, they're just people escaping extreme violence. In many cases, they're women and children who are threatened by a Mara or a drug gang. They would almost certainly be killed if they went back. This is why they will do whatever it takes to leave. And I say whatever it takes because they really do take no prisoners. There are more than 3,000 kilometers, that's 1,800 miles, between Guatemala and El Paso, Texas. Many of these migrants, they do the journey by foot. Others do it by the so-called death train, and you can imagine why they call it that. So, what happens when these people cross the border? Well, most of them are just apprehended and deported to their home countries. But let's be fair here. Some make it to America. US authorities have already created many programs to attend to those refugees. In 2017, more than 59,000 Central Americans stayed in the country. Well, is that too much or too little? Well, it's up to you to make your own judgment on that one. But the question is, how many did Mexico accept?
We don't have an exact number, but it is much smaller. And here's what we know. In Mexico today, there are about 50,000 Guatemalans, while the United States hosts 900,000.
So you might be wondering now, well, why? Why can't Central American refugees remain in Mexico? Let's have a look, shall we?
No country for foreigners.
In Mexico, they have made it very clear not all migrants are made equal. For example, if you are watching this video from America, do not worry, Mexico will welcome you with the most open of arms. In fact, most of the migrants living there, they come from the United States. Don't believe me? Have a look at this chart. Mexico has 1.2 million of these migrants today. Of course, 900,000 are American, 27,000 are Spanish, and only 15,000 come from Honduras. Mexico has more Germans than it does Salvadorians. And this is surprising considering the Salvadorians are much closer, they speak the same language, and are leaving their country by the thousands. So you might be wondering, well, why is this? Is it pure chance? Do Central Americans not like Mexico? Of course not. Just look at what Mexican immigration law says.
The Secretary of State can deny entry to a foreigner into his country or change the characteristics of their migrant status at any time if the demographic balance requires it.
Yep, you heard that right. This demographic balance is just a nice way of saying, if you're poor, you're not allowed to live here. And when it says changing the characteristics of their migrant status, it basically means that they can just tell you to f off whenever they like. Alright, I know what you might be thinking. Things are changing. And of course they are. Just look at what the former Mexican president said in October of 2018.
Hoy, México te extiende la mano.
Today, Mexico gives you its hand. We want you and all the migrants to feel protected and calm. In order to support you, today, Mexico is launching the Feel Like Home plan. Here, in Mexico, you can receive healthcare assistance, education, and you'll get a temporary ID to get your residence permit.
Mientras regularizas tu situación migratoria.
The man you see on screen is Enrique Peña Nieto, the former Mexican president. This was one of his last policies before leaving office. His successor, AMLO, agreed with this plan, and Donald Trump he also agreed. All of a sudden, his southern neighbor accepted migrants, so America didn't have to. But hold on a minute. As we said at the beginning, words are one thing and facts are another. Sure, at the beginning, the Mexican government accepted people from Central America. In a few months, more than 20,000 Guatemalans, Hondurans, and Salvadorians came to the country asking for a visa. And how did the Mexicans like that? Big surprise, not very much.
According to a survey, 58% of Mexicans don't want migrants entering the country.
Exactly. Trump is not alone in hating migrants and refugees. Add to that the fact that the Mexican authorities can't deal with so many people crossing the southern border, by the way. I mean, think about it. You need to build shelters, print those visas, and feed all of those people. And you need money for that. And you need political capital. And the new Mexican president, he doesn't want to risk any of those things. He's extremely popular, and he doesn't want to stop being popular. So, with Mexican society against migrants and the army and the police with no resources, the new Mexican president had only one choice.
Mexico triples deportations of Central Americans with López Obrador. The new government has removed more than 45,000 people in 5 months. 15,000 of those were in April.
So now you might be wondering, what are the consequences of this policy? Of course, the biggest victims are those hundreds of thousands of Central Americans who cannot stay in Mexico or in America. This is not the only consequence. Think about it. If AMLO doesn't want the refugees, where are they going to go? Exactly. They're going to keep making their way to the United States, the land of the free. So the hot potato, it falls right back into Donald Trump's hands. It is then, in May of 2019, that the White House threatens Mexico with 5% tariffs. In other words, this is when the Mexican government finds itself between the hammer and the anvil. If the Mexican president takes in so many refugees, the Mexicans are gonna hate him, and if he doesn't, well, Donald Trump is gonna punish him. So what's his solution?
The U.S. government's Remain in Mexico policy is expanding, stranding more people in a dangerous Mexican city.
In other words, in May of 2019, Trump went to AMLO and said, look, Mexico, dude, I don't give two shits about what you do with your Central Americans. It's really not my problem. You want to take them, they're all yours. Want to deport them? Whatever, dude. You can deport them. I don't give a shit. Canada, Russia, fucking Mars, it's on you, bro. Just one thing. I don't want to see those fuckers crossing my border, and if I do, you're gonna pay for it, hombre. That's right. You're gonna pay. So, what was the easiest solution to AMLO? Basically, letting all those immigrants stay in a ghetto. Mexico has deployed 6,000 troops to contain them. So they haven't been deported, but they cannot continue on their way to integrate into Mexican society. For example, in the most recent of months, many of those immigrants have been concentrated in cities like Nuevo Laredo at the border with the US. And they're in really poor conditions, by the way. Big shocker. There are no doctors, there's no food, and violence. It's starting to rise up. The worst place of all is a city called Tapachula at the border with Guatemala. Over 20,000 and 30,000 asylum pledges have been registered here, and the Mexican army has been stationed there, stopping people from going any further north. Oh, and yeah, lots of murders are already happening. So in other words, those refugees ended up in the same situation that they were escaping from. Neither America or Mexico wants them, and while those two countries just keep throwing hot potato to one another, these people are dying. So the question now goes to you. How do you think this problem can be solved? Do you think Mexico could do anything to accept the refugees, or is it really only America's job? Could they really reach a deal to share responsibility? Well, please leave your answer in the comment section below. Also, visit reconsidermedia.com. That's the podcast that provided the vocals in this episode that were not mine. Don't forget, we publish brand new videos every week, so subscribe, hit that bell, hit that like button, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.
And if you want to learn more about politics and hear even more of my lovely voice, you can join us at Reconsider Media. We have a podcast at reconsidermedia.com/podcast. See you there.